Aloha, everyone. Hi, Anna. How are you?
Hi. Hi, everyone.
So I think there might be a slight delay in our audio with each other because but that's okay. We'll work with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
you're
wow.
in Hawaii, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, so my internet is fun, let me tell you. We have quite a crowd already in here. You always draw the crowd.
I'm going. Oh, I can actually see through StreamYard comments,
Yeah, in the
right?
comments, right?
Here we go.
First
Okay.
one in was Patrice. Aloha, Patrice.
Hi, Patrice. Hi,
Aloha,
Jane.
Beth.
Hi, Jesse.
And then there's Jane the Seeker.
Jane.
Aloha.
Okay. I can
Oh, Jesse.
figure this
Hi,
out.
Jesse. Jane, I love it. She's like, here we go. And she's like, I feel like grabbing my decks. Go do it.
Yeah, I grabbed. I
Aloha,
trying to
Betsy.
organize a little bit, but I'll just wing it. If
I know.
some of the
That's
decks
what we
I
usually
couldn't
do,
find.
isn't it?
So yeah.
Right. I don't have all the decks, but I have quite a few. Actually, I think the very first one of yours that I got was the Oracle of Echoes.
Ah, you have the second edition, yes.
Yes.
I have it here too. I got it here too, yeah. I brought it just in case.
Oh, hi Gerald. He's lunch looking. Enjoy your lunch.
I know a lot of people are probably at work, so
right. That's okay.
But then Memorial Weekend is coming up, so everybody's gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we can always say aloha to everyone watching back the replay. Don't forget to leave a comment. The second deck I got of yours, actually, I don't think you're not even doing it anymore, right? The Claire de Limon.
No, I pulled it out because it got pirated and it was being sold on all the. I'm not going to name the sites, but
right,
they changed. And not only did they steal the images, they changed the backs. And
oh my god!
So they created their own version of it,
mm-hmm.
And I tried to take them down, and I did off of Amazon and a couple of times, and Walmart. It was even on Walmart.
What?
And
oh
I was getting, and then people were coming to me. Asking me for because the deck comes with a couple of cards that are explanatory.
Mm-hmm.
So they were asking me for that. So or they were complaining about the card stock, and I was like, that's not my So finally,
right.
because there was so much confusion, because I would only have it in stock once a year or something like that. I decided that it was people were getting confused, and they thought it was out, and they were just buying it from all these counterfeit sites. So I just decided to put it out of print, and that way at least whoever buys it knows that they're buying a fake, and that way I'm not gonna get if you're buying it off, if it's out there and you're buying it, you're buying a fake. Let's just
right. If it's $5 or $10, it's not the real thing.
Yeah. So it was unfortunate, but
Beth has a question here. The Tarot of Echoes is already out of stock. Does that mean it's gone? Rumor on the street, mass market to come. Is this true?
So yes, it's true. So that what Jonathan just showed is the indie version, which is the one I published, and
right.
So there were pre-orders set up for it in December and January. I kept it up for 2 months. I don't do extended pre-orders. I just don't like to keep money that long of a time. It stresses me out.
Makes sense.
So I had the pre-orders for it, and the deck was actually picked up by US Games as I was working on it towards the end, and I did make it very clear on my Instagram, and I tried to spread the word that it is mass market. It will be coming mass market, because it did get picked up, but I wanted to put out the indie version of it because I came up with the deck based on the Tarot of Echoes. So, and hence it's called, I'm sorry, Oracle of Echoes. So it's called Tarot of Echoes.
Right.
And the Oracle, because it's an Oracle, it's obviously it's more free and fluid, but I wanted a companion to it. So I decided to do the Tarot, and I wanted them to be on the same cardstock so that when people work with them, they're the same. And in order, I had, since the Oracle deck was published by me at the time, I decided to put out a limited number of decks. So the way I did it was I didn't cap it. Whoever wanted to purchase it was able to purchase it in December and January. I figured that's enough time for people, like if you really want it, you can get it. And then that number of decks were printed.
Right.
Probably like an additional 10 or something, just because I gave some to some friends, and then also if there's like issues, with a misprint, so I would have something to exchange. But it is coming mass market. This version did not have a guidebook because I didn't get a chance to write the guidebook. I finished the deck, I did the box, and initially, it is writer weight based. So it should read like that. I mean, the images are different than the traditional writer weight, but the meanings are the same.
Right.
And there is a guidebook for the mass market version. That one will have a guidebook, but I don't know. And they do a beautiful job. I love US Games. So far they've done a very nice job with the decks I've had with them. And obviously there's going to be some changes from the indie edition. So meaning the box will be different, the back of the card will be different, the text placement will be different, the font will be different. So there's going to be some changes. It won't look like that unless they really love the design, which very rarely do they always keep the same thing that an indie deck creator will do.
Stand apart.
And they want it to be separate. And so that will have a guidebook, and I'm actually in the process of finishing up the guidebook now as we speak. And files will then go to the printer, and it's going to take a while for it to come out mass market, because usually there's like you have to wait about a year for a deck to come out, because it goes to the publisher. They put the guidebook through an edit, they do edits on the manuscript, and then it goes to the graphic design department, and they create the deck, and and then you have to print it, and they're printing a lot of decks. So when you print a lot of decks, it takes a long time for them to come to you, because there's so many. So yes, it will be out. You'll get a chance to purchase it. It will not be at the price of an indie, because it is mass produced, meaning, the more decks you print, the price goes down. So if they print 40,000 decks, then you're not paying, $60, you're paying $20, but it will look different. So
it'll look different.
Yeah.
And I heard that US Games doing both of these. Is that right?
Yes. Because how did it go? Yeah, they signed on the Tarot of Echoes, and then they put up the Oracle also. So the last indie version for the Oracle was back in September. So I don't print it anymore. And again, that I don't know if you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how they're going to look together in terms of the backs, what they're going to do. So the back for the Tarot of Echoes has blue and red, the flower that's on the box also. And that back was because, the first edition of the Oracle of Echoes was red, and the second edition, that one. The second edition is blue. So I combined the two, the idea of the red and the blue. So that's why the back of the Tarot of Echoes is like that. But yeah, both decks will be coming out with US Games, most likely it'll be in 20. Don't quote me on it, but I'm assuming end of next year, probably. So
end
it
of
takes
2025.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So something like that. So there's going to be a gap.
Right. Okay. And then this is not the only tarot deck you had come out this year,
right? Yes. But that one, so that's a collaboration with Claire Duval, and it is she's an expert in Arthurian legend. I mean, my brain just shuts down because she has so much information on it,
Right.
And we worked on that for a year together, and the visual, the images for that deck is, a lot of it is she came up with the ideas, like what she wanted to see, and I worked with her kind of like I did with Avalon. We did it, through Zoom. It wasn't public, it was behind the scenes, but it's the same idea, and they did a really, I think, a really nice job on the card stock, and
it's great card stock.
It's matte, and the book itself, I took French in school, so I know I can make out a general context, right? I still use the Google Translate thing, if you put the
yes, thank you for teaching me that, because it helped me get through the book.
So it'll automatically just instantly translate. I mean, there's some, probably some things that it doesn't get, but yeah, that took about a year, and it's published through a French publisher, and it is in French. Right now, I'm shopping around trying to see who would want to take on an English version for it, because here's the thing, usually they have to translate it, so it's much more work for a publisher to do than if you give them so they would have to, it's not easy for them, because they will have to take a French manuscript and translate it in English, so there's additional money and all that. So right now we're still in the process of trying to see if that is possible. We do want to do it, but it's going to have to be it's going to take a while, right? Even though the cards are done, it's you still need, it's a little bit more work than
you got to translate the book, you got to translate the cards,
yeah. I mean, the cards,
that's pretty
easier because it has the magician, le magicien, so it's
mostly the same.
Not that hard. Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, how many copies of the indie ended up getting printed?
I have to look. I wrote it on my website. I think it was 750.
Okay.
Something like that.
Sounds about right. I remember seeing that post.
Yeah, I counted them. I actually went through, because at one point I was like, how many were there? Because my whole room was full of the decks.
Right.
And
you're doing it all yourself.
I did it all myself, and at one point it just became a big blur because I was unpacking them and signing them. So I lost count in terms. I mean, I know how many because I ordered, 10 additional ones.
I'm kidding.
But the ones that actually went to yeah, so that's how if you find one that is flip a box that's in a tucked box and it's not signed, it means that they managed to counterfeit that one too. But I don't know. I have, indie ones, except the Claire de Lune got counterfeit and it was an indie, but I have, it's harder for them to do it for tarot decks. I don't know. I haven't seen it as much. It's mostly mass market decks that are counterfeit.
Counterfeit, right? So do you worry that when this goes mass market, you might see counterfeits out there?
Yeah, I'm 100% sure that it's going to be counterfeit.
It's going to happen. Yeah.
But you know what they do with the counterfeits is like they don't put the book in. So like for the Tarot of the Abyss, it's counterfeit, and they put it in a tuck box, and they put a
QR
standard white little you know flimsy book in it, like the little white book.
Right.
And I get messages saying, "Oh, can you please send me a PDF of the guidebook? I tried scanning the QR code and it's not working." I'm like, because there is no QR code to be scanned,
Right.
you know? So I wish people would do a little bit more research. But I guess at the beginning, when you're starting tarot, you don't really know. So you just go and you pick a deck and you buy it. And
right. My first exposure to that is someone bought me I think they got it. I'm not even going to say the website, but one of those websites, and it was a much smaller tuck box kind of deck, and it was the Wildwood, I want to say. And there was a QR code on back. I was like, this is weird. Like, what is going on here? So I scanned the QR code, and I did get the PDF guidebook, but there was like a list of 10 different decks guidebooks, and I'm just like, what?
That's because that's what they do, yeah.
Right.
But there's not. I mean.
So of course,
yeah. So I'm 100% that it's gonna get. But you know, the print quality of these are not that great. The cardstock's not that great. You know, it is what it is. I'm not gonna. I'm letting it go.
Moving on, we have a question from Beth. How did you first get into tarot and move to creating art for tarot and oracle,
Anna? So I was first a reader, and I've been reading. All right, so I've been reading cards since 13, 14, but I started off with playing cards, so it was more cartomancy, I guess you'd call it. So I used to do that, and then when I was like 19, like 20 years ago, 1920, I found tarot, and I started reading tarot with just RWS. I tried and I failed at other systems, so I stuck with what I felt comfortable. Right. And I just read until I was like, you know, I was working in advertising, and then I really had no time to create. My background is painting and drawing and graphic design, packaging. So I was working in advertising as a art director, and then I had my daughter and I stayed home. So it took me a while to actually have the creative capability again, because when you work in, and I'm sure people from every background, like it does, when you are, if you're a writer and you work as a copywriter, or you're giving all your creative towards that, and then when you're trying to do something for yourself, it's like blank. So I spent years not able to paint or do anything for myself. And then when I was home, I was reading more and more tarot, because I actually was able to do that. And then I decided to do a tarot deck for myself. It was mostly for myself. I did an abstract one. It was Hidden Waters Tarot, and it was based on a Rorschach. It was like an exploration in tarot for me, because I wanted to see if you could read intuitively without visual guides, like clear visual guides. Like, and it was an interesting process, because I found that you could probably read off of a blank deck, you know,
which
like,
I think you very little now with the blank deck, didn't they? The invisible.
They are, but that's mostly for your own, so you would draw. But I'm saying, like, if you are if you know tarot, how to read tarot, I think that once you learn the methods, and it's like a language, right, that you learn, then you kind of let loose and your intuition takes hold. If you're sitting and you're reading the book constantly and you don't put the book aside, you're never going to be able to use your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried that. I made that deck. That was my first deck, and I self-published it. I actually was just planning on buying, one deck for myself, and I submitted it to Eclectic Tarot. It was that time, right? It was like that site, the Eclectic Tarot. We had all these decks, and
Mm-hmm.
I just sent it to them, just as like, here I did this, different, a little different. And then I got a lot of people asking me for the deck, and I didn't really know what to do because I only made one, and I had no idea of how to do this, So it was a learning process, and that was the first deck. And then I did the Claire de Lune, I believe was my second.
Mm-hmm.
I did because I went from, like, a lot of people thought that I was like an abstract artist, which I was in my early. I still love abstract to paint.
Right.
It's a different form of expressing yourself, but I'm also a traditional artist. So I then went a little tighter, and I did the Claire de Lune, and then I did the Oracle of Echoes, which was a joint thing. I brought in people to kind of submit their requests in terms of what they would like to see in cards. And then I did the illustrations for the Bone Stone. I had started the Tarot of the Abyss for myself, but I put that on hold to finish the illustrations for the Bone Stone. And then the Bone Stone was done. I went back to the Abyss. That kind of sounds weird. I went back to the Abyss.
You went back to the Abyss.
I went back to the Abyss. I finished it. And then I worked on, so that one. And then I worked on the Pathwork Oracle, which was behind the scenes, which is now coming out in July. And then I finished that, and then I worked on the Arthurian Tarot with Claire.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the process, so it's like parallel. Before I took on the Arthurian Tarot, I was working on the Tarot of Echo. So that one got put on hold to finish. So I keep putting, I had to put a bunch of the ones that I was initially intending to, because I can't really work. It's hard to mentally separate them. Because they were different. I mean, it's tarot, so it's not that hard, but in the sense of Tarot of Echo has no historical, background in the sense like the Arthurian does, right? It's more of a storytelling and had a continuity of story, which my deck does not. So it was a little different, and
We have a lot of love for the Tarot of the Abyss. Jane the Seeker says, I love the Tarot of the Abyss. And aloha, Karen. Care Bear, Bard of Cards. I love saying that. Tarot of the Abyss is my soul deck.
I love hearing that. I know, it gets love and hate at the same time, because people who love black and white decks will love it, and then there's some people who really just hate black and white decks, and they constantly will ask me, are you ever going to color it? Can you color it? And I'm like, no, but you can color it. I mean, I've seen people do it.
I've actually had that thought of getting a second copy just so I can.
I've seen that, and I think that's actually, in a way, it would personalize it more for you.
Right. No,
having some splashes of color somewhere.
Mm-hmm. I could see that totally. So getting back to the Tarot of Echoes, what cards seem to come the easiest for you?
So I go in sequence. So I don't do one from the major and then hop to the minors. I start off with the major arcana. So I started with the Fool.
Okay.
But here's the thing. I started the deck. Here's what happened. And FYI, for people who ever want to make a deck, I'll put it on hold for a long time, because your style changes. So I started it, and it was initially very loose. And
okay,
I realized that
more like
it was like that. And here's the thing: it worked for the oracle, but once I started doing the tarot, something was like annoying me because tarot, it has more of a structure.
more
So
structure.
the fact that is tighter, and it just bothered me. So I actually worked. I did the Fool. I did like half of the majors when I put it on hold, and then when I went back to it, two things happened. After a year, my style changed, so it's really hard to incorporate it into that. And I realized what was upsetting me was the fact that I did want to add more detail to it. So I went back and I actually redid some half of the major arcana because I noticed like it's like you can't control the creative process. It's very strange. Like you can tell yourself, I'm going to do it this way. And then, so I did the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Moon, the Sun. I did all those cards. And then by the time I got to, I think it was I went through Temperance. I did Temperance and the Devil. And then towards the end, it was like I couldn't control myself. So I was adding more detail. So it became more detailed as I was progressing in each card. And I realized that the deck wanted to have more detail. So I know that sounds crazy, but
no, I totally
it's just, there's like it takes on like a little personality of its own. Like so I could not stop that. So it wasn't like, even if I tried, I couldn't stop it. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to go with it and see where it takes me. And then by the end, when I finished the deck, I realized that I had to go back and change a bunch of the cards because the deck had progressed. It had become something else. So my advice would be, when you start drawing for this particular reason, you know, like if you're doing an oracle or a tarot or something that is being used to read with spiritually, I think that you cannot force it. Like you cannot say, I will do this in this style and it will be like this, because it won't.
It takes on a life of its own, right?
Yeah, it just will not. And it was interesting because I worked on the Bone Stone and the Arthurian one, and I haven't had that experience. I have had an experience with the echoes. Two things happened. So this style, and then I did a card, and then in the back of my mind, I had some other idea, you know. So I was like, I'm going to do this, and it was like, no, nope, you're not. It's like you're going to do this. So I finished the card, and it was like I have to do another version of it because it's obsessing. It's like I have to create this. So some cards, like you'll have it just comes, the visual will just pop in your head. And if you don't do that, then it's I don't know where it comes from. You know, maybe different creators have different experiences, but it's something that you have to do, at least for me.
Makes sense. I see some comments here. I'm trying to find pictures. So Karen says, I don't miss the colors at all. It's like black and white photography to me, but in drawings, I think the black and white draws my eye in more with the deck. And then now what I'm doing is, because I've been using the deck so much, I actually just did I went to a black and white party on, Sunday night. And so this, of course, was one of the decks I brought, the Tarot of the Abyss. So it's very shuffled. Oh, here we go. I got them. So Jane the Seeker says the Eight of Cups is the best Eight of Cups.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, I tend to the way I do it is like, what would I do when I leave something behind, like I
Mm-hmm.
would throw it, so that's kind of how you think about things when you make
Right.
the cards. You always have to,
And then 6 of
you
Cups right
bring a
there.
lot from your person, not your personality, but your personal experience,
Personal
right?
experience, right? That makes sense.
Yeah. And that's
Let me
my
just
cousin,
say,
actually. That's
so
I
that's
used her as a like some her features.
mm-hmm.
She's well, so I as an inspiration. She's so she's actually um younger than me, but she's lived in Spain, so if she sees this, she's probably gonna be like, "What?" So
Jumping back to the Tarot of Echoes, can you talk a little bit more about this Empress card?
yes.
Yeah, that one kind of jumped out at me. I was like, "Ooh, I love it," but I'm kind of,
So I think so. This is how I read, and I will mention that in the guidebook. This is a deck that, since I wasn't hired to make it. This is my point of view on it,
right.
and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's right, but we all put different elements in order when we read,
Your own
right?
spin,
For
right?
your own spin on it. You still keep to the meaning of it, but you can't help but kind of add from your personal viewpoint. So
Mhm.
I see the Empress. Well, obviously, she's the mother and the creator of. I
Right,
see her as creator, but I see her more than in terms of the birther, like the pregnant
right.
Empress. Because when people think creation, uh,
Great
and yes,
tour.
a woman can create life, and she is the Empress, right? But I see that card more of creation from all aspects in terms, and I draw from all the queens of the suit. So I actually will mention that in the guidebook that
Mhm.
she is if you took all the queens, if you took Queen of Cups, Pentacles, Wands, Swords, and you took all their energies and put them just into one ball, to
Right.
me, that is the Empress. Like, she has all of them. So and if you think of it from a creative point of view, you also have the aces, right? The aces are the bursts of creation from each suit, right? So
Right.
it's also, in a smaller capacity than the Empress. And um, when you have a creative big idea, it does feel like your mind is kind of blown. So I wanted that in the Empress, like to have that like explosion, kind of galactic explosion kind of thing.
Right.
And the eye, is a very popular. I did not come up with the concept of the eye. There's
All
a lot of
seen. Right.
artists who've done that with the all-seeing eye, but I did want to have that, the galaxy feel, and the fact that, you know, I want people to focus on the creation aspect of it and not that she's giving birth. I don't know
Mhm.
if that makes sense,
No,
right?
man, totally
Because
makes
if
sense.
if if all right, so for
The
instance,
birthing of the universe,
myself,
even.
if I were to if you give a reading to a woman in particularly and say she's like a young woman and the Empress who has a big pregnant belly shows up, and the woman would see that card, a lot of them will be like, oh, am I going to be pregnant? You immediately take it to that thought because you see a pregnant woman.
Mhm.
So I wanted to kind of take it a little further than that, to say there is creation happening, but it can be from multiple points of view. I mean, in multiple areas, and not necessarily, you might be pregnant, but you might not. So it really depends on also other consecutive cards that would follow suit, right?
Right.
So that's why the odd.
And when you combine the two, the Empress and the Emperor, I actually really see the Egyptian mythology of Nut and Geb, right? The sky and the
You
earth.
could take it, you could, yeah, you could do that. I see the Emperor, I think of it as a, again, the same thing as the Empress. He's all the kings
He's the four kings in
combined.
one.
So
right.
that you have air, which is the sky, the mountains, which is pentacles. You have the beard, which is water, and the in between, which is the mind, the swords. So
Right.
I wanted to bring that type of it because he is more the Emperor is the father of all kings, kind of thing, right? That's how I see him that way. It doesn't say that in the RWS, but that's my twist on it, I guess you would have to
That's
say.
actually how I was taught to look at it.
Yeah, and so if you think of a king, what does he do? Like, what is it? You know, he has to manage. He has to be, traditionally, right? A king would have to take care of the kingdom. He'd have to make sure he doesn't get invaded. So all those attributes that we apply to kings from all the suits would be the emperor.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. You're getting quite a few great comments because the best chatters are bringing it. Karen says, as a mom of 3, I greatly appreciate you expanding the Empress like that. I read her more as creation and abundance than fertility. And then Beth brings up,
I mean,
like, seeing a pregnant Empress can be triggering, right? It's either like, I don't want to be pregnant, or for women who want to be pregnant but can't.
Right. So that's another thing, because if somebody has really wanted to get pregnant and you get that pregnant card, then you have to be like, well, that doesn't mean you're going to get. So you're creating, in a sense, false hope in the direction, because visually that's what it shows. And, then you have to go into this whole tangent of actually explaining the card and all the things that it can represent. But if that woman really wants to get pregnant, that's all she's going to see, regardless of what you say.
Or if she doesn't
want to get pregnant,
or if she just had a miscarriage, that would be,
or she had a miscarriage, right? So you're creating, you're taking it from a spiritual thing and you're really bringing it down to a mundane element.
Right.
So, and specifically in the major arcana, which I see more of a, it has more impact on your life. It's more spiritual. And then you get into the minors, which is more, I guess, I see the minors as the more mundane every day.
Right.
So I think I'd be more comfortable if, say, the Queen of Pentacles was pregnant. Because
which in a lot of decks she is.
Right, because she is of the earth and the material versus the Empress.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, I get it. I totally get it. And Kim also, aloha Kim, I think of it as an empire. The Empress comes before the Emperor because she creates and presides over the abundance of the creation. The Emperor provides the order and structure that keeps it all in line, right?
Exactly. Yes. Couldn't have said it better.
Thank you, Kim, for putting it in succinctly when we were trying to, like, blah, 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 I don't get it. And that brings us to the next one, the teacher, or the wise one in this one. So this is the Hierophant, which I'm glad you called the wise one, because the Hierophant, right, is kind of triggering too for a lot of people.
Well, the moment you call it a Hierophant, you have to kind of show the Hierophant.
Right.
So, you can't call it, I mean, I guess you could, but it would be like a visual clash with the word. So it kind of, if you're going to say the priest or the Pope, you can't really say the Pope and then show, I don't know, a goose, I guess. I just visually would not match. So I think the wise one is more of the teacher that will gather the information, and then he can still be the link between spirit and the people, which is what the Hierophant is. Symbolically, he's the link between, I guess, the divine. He's the conduit. So you could still have that, but name it differently so that it doesn't have that direct association.
And I really like how in this deck, the wise one almost looks like a grown-up hermit, right? The hermit has gone within to really learn the lessons, and then
and it's always a constant, because when you go, like, if you think of a hermit, like, even when they would go into the desert to meditate or to search, you're searching yourself, and it is an inner journey. So for me, for that card, it made sense to show that it's an inner journey, and the more you find yourself, the more light you will gather in the world. So his lantern is the result of his inner journey.
Right. The lantern is him on his inner journey again, right? And he's holding a lantern within the lantern, so it's like this
within. So it's like a perpetual thing, yeah.
Right, exactly. And then I feel like then the wise one is him once he's finished that journey, and he's looking into in a book, and now he's willing to teach what he learned.
And if you look at the book, so the book has a tree, which would be the tree of life, and then the flame itself is the tree ignited. So he's reading, and it's actually becoming that, versus in the hermit where the light is himself. Now the light is knowledge, exterior knowledge.
Right.
So it is.
I love that connection. Yeah. Oh, I'm missing some. The best chatters are bringing it. Yeah, Beth says, there's so much pressure on women to do this, no, do that. I think keeping out the pregnancy thing is best, just my opinion. And then Gerald says, I agree, Kim. The emperor maintains the boundaries of the kingdom, and the empress keeps the kingdom running in those boundaries. You can see that too. And then touching back on the Hierophant thing, we got Adam saying the Hierophant in general is one of my least favorite cards. For me, it represents duality of doctrine versus spiritual enlightenment. Right, it's dogma versus like actually doing the work.
But here's the kicker. For me, any spiritual practice can become dogma for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So if you view dogma, like, I don't know if dogma is wrong in the sense of, creating a personal dogma that works for you because you've gathered all the pieces and put them together that works with your personality, and you're repeating it every single day, or you're repeating it throughout your life. That is a dogma. That's a part of your dogma. And versus dogma that is connected to a larger scale practice that has become a religion. So every personal ritual and can become dogma. If I have my own rituals and then I gather somebody else and I bring them into my group and I keep bringing in people and I teach my practice to somebody else, eventually it will become dogma for my group. So I think in that sense, there's a difference on terms of how you want to view the dogma. You can say, I don't connect with the Christian dogma. I don't connect with the Hindu dogma, or whatever,
Makes sense.
But dogma, personal dogma, I don't have a problem with.
And then just talk a little more about that. Beth, Laser Rising says, I think of the fool on their learning journey. The Hierophant to me teaches the fool that there are institutions and human created laws and rules and consequences.
Right. Well, I mean, we look to our elders, usually there's a reason why you say respect your elders, right? Because they've gone through things that you have not. And even though you push and you put resistance, the tendency even as teens is to resist, to think that your elders, your parents, they don't know what they're talking about, right? But most of the time, what happens is when you reach their position, you realize, you're thinking, you realize some things that you couldn't have realized unless you experienced them. So, I think the fool is the young person who has dreams and can see the world open in every direction, sometimes to an extreme. It depends on how you see it. So what risks you're willing to take. And the Hierophant, depending how you depict him and what you want to say about him, is the one who can teach. Yeah.
And then Warrior Girl says, the Lovers card is that for me. Here's the Lovers in this deck, which is very different, I think, because it's them choosing each other, even though there's nobody else around.
Right. So the Lovers, I wanted to show them, connecting, like holding each other. And I actually have, if you look at them, you can say that they are the lovers, but it also, it's like, if you look behind them, it's the barren. The background is barren, so there's nothing growing. It's mostly, there's the sunset and there's like rocks behind them. They're in a field, and the idea is that idea of home is where the heart is. So if you are with somebody that you are connected with, it doesn't matter where you are, if that you are together, if you can support each other. So I wanted to show support, like holding each other, physically embracing. And it is, they're not naked. I know there's a lot of and
well,
yeah. And in the Terror of the Abyss, it's similar, but it's using trees. They're still embracing. So I think that's something that I tend to bring in when it comes to the Lovers. It's my little thing. Like, they're always intertwining. They're always holding each other.
Which makes sense. I mean, that's what they choose each other. Even here in Hawaii, there's legends of the two lovers who angered the gods, and then like one becomes the tree and the other becomes the flowers on the tree. Kind of idea.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to find the Lovers, but I never got a chance to reorganize Terror of the Abyss. I reorganized everything but it.
That's okay. I mean, I remember it.
Here it is. Yeah, so here's the Lovers and Terror of the Abyss.
Yeah, so they're still their roots are connected. So it's, if you look, I mean, that's the human aspect of the Abyss card, right? And I don't know what I'll do next time, but that's what felt natural this time.
Yes. And then we got a question from Adam here. Which tarot card archetype is most triggering for you, and why? Well, we already talked about, for me, it's always been the Hierophant, because I was not raised Christian. I was raised Jewish, and seeing the Pope all the time, it is always kind of like, ugh. I understand the teacher part.
Yeah, there are a couple. So I was raised Christian Orthodox, and so whenever you see, like, I could never read a tarot deck that had Christian iconography in it, because here's the thing, like, you can even if you don't practice a religion that you were raised in, I respect the fact that I know that would be disrespectful to incorporate that imagery, because Christianity does not really want that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I were to incorporate put the Pope in, I know that I'm pretty sure that a priest that would see that would not be happy about it,
Right.
So I'm going to try to not do that. But for me, instantly draw my mind to the church. So it would create a blockage in terms of the reading. The devil card would be the same, because the devil, the way it's taught is, you know,
right.
The way it's depicted in the original is also has a very that gives me that sense again. So even though the message of the devil in I still call it the devil, the message would still maintain the message, but you know, visually it's not going to take me to the chains and the, you know, the the horn. So I'm trying to create a little bit of a distance so that it doesn't take your mind to a different area that I really don't think is necessary.
Makes sense. Yeah, I actually really appreciate jumping to the couple cards forward is the fact that the chain is not on the devil card, but you find it on the star where she's just dropping the chain off the edge of a cliff.
Right, because I think that you have to, the star is hope. And when you have hope, if something bad happens and you hope that it will get better, it is an unchaining where you're breaking the bonds that were the something that was holding you to have that hope. Right. Whether you're going through a loss or a divorce, or like there's something that is you think you can't get out of, and then you just unchain yourself. So for me, that's hope. And
right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's you're dropping the chains that you forged yourself.
Right.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. Some more lovers chats. We got the warrior girl saying the original lovers was a male with one female pulling at one hand, the other, and another female pulling at his other hand. And those are actually two different versions of the goddess Venus pulling on him, and he's trying to choose which one. Right.
I think there's you're right. But again, that puts the lovers to me in the mindset of you have to choose between. Maybe I'm like, I would be reading too much into it, but you'd be choosing between two individuals. So right. I don't know if that's like when you do a reading, if that shows up, just like, am I going to, because people can take things very
literally, right?
Like, oh, does that mean I'm going to have two people to choose from? So
right. It's really that original one is more about, I feel it's more about like choosing the type of relationship, not necessarily between two people.
Like what type of a relationship do you want? Do you want one that's so I think that,
or do you want the one that's practical, right? So.
Right.
Yeah. Kim says that's a beautiful lover's card. I love that they're embracing. They are choosing to be in that embrace. Exactly. Right.
Yeah, and I think I always tend to say that it really depends on the cards that are in the spread, close to the cards. So, the lovers will have a different meaning if they're by themselves versus if you have it with a 3 of swords.
Right.
So that's why I think that making them as clear energetically as possible is, for me, the simplest way.
Right.
For instance, like not showing the original, the two women pulling in. So that's like, yeah.
No, adding a set. Totally get it. We have another question for you. Is there a particular card in the tarot that Ana finds is always difficult or problematic to create?
I mean, I tend to
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I would say not a particular card, but I would say a particular suit. And it still stands true because I've said this before. It's the Pentacle suit. Mostly because it deals with the material aspect, and I connect more to the suit of swords and the cups. And I think it's in different periods of my life, I've connected to different suits. So when I was young, in my 20s, I was connecting. I did not want to see anything from the suit of swords. I only wanted to see cups and wands. Those are like my thing. And then, right. And then as I've gotten older, now I appreciate the suit of swords and I love it and I see it differently. I have the pentacles I understand, but they seem very grounding and solid in a sense, right? And I am a fire sign. And I'm not very grounded I'm grounded in my artistic abilities and how to organize things artistically. Right. I'm very structured. But in terms of, I tend to be a little more spontaneous and just not in day-to-day life. So I wouldn't call myself very grounded. So maybe that has to do with my inability to connect, but I understand it. So when I do create the cards, I have to put myself in that mindset. And I think that's why it's the hardest, because when you create a card, you have to think about it. You have to envision different instances. Like, what will you do in this situation? What does that mean for you? What does it mean to juggle things? What would you juggle? Like for the Two of Pentacles, like what's hard to juggle? So you're thinking of things in your life that are directed towards that suits. And if you don't have that element in your life, it's harder. It's harder to create because it's like a learning, right? It's like you have to think more on a subject. So I would say suits. In terms of particular card, I don't really have one card that will be like, oh, I don't want to draw it.
Right. It's because more the energy of a specific suit.
Yeah, I think it's the energy of it. I do love the older, the pages are the ones that I would say I'm not very fond of. I like the kings and the queens, so I like the older energies of the suits. I know the suits are hard for people sometimes to connect with, but I see them as archetypes. And since I used to read cartomancy, the king, the queen, when you read cards, usually you attribute them to particular people. So, for instance, the Queen of Hearts would be a female that has brown eyes, that is more, warmer. So you do attribute physical attributes to them, and say like the King of Swords would be, you'd be like dark hair. So it would be like, I still have kind of drawn from that. So it's a little easier because I kind of see them as both. That makes sense.
Yeah. Sense. Adam mentions that he uses lovers more as deals, relationships of all types, fusion of energies, you and relating to the other. Romance, I use more Two of Cups or Ace of Cups, depending on the spread, question, position. Makes sense. And then I was looking for the moon because Care Bear says in the Tour of the Abyss, the moon card makes me think if you were to take the devil and the lovers and blend them into one card. So I had to run and go look for it. But yeah, I could see where you would see that.
Yeah, the two on inversed, right? Because you have the roots, and then it's it's the
yeah. I could see that.
That's a good observation.
Good observation, Karen. Yeah. Forever We're After says, for me, the Two of Cups is love or friendship found, whereas the Lover's card is about issues around relationships, whatever relationship the Aquarian is uncertain about. Yeah, I mean, I find a lover is not always necessarily a romantic relationship. It's just how you connect with others. So
the Two of Cups for me usually can be, I really kind of gear it, I go based on where it's falling, and but if I were to just take the single card, yes, I'd say a potential relationship, but also a partnership, because it's you're going into cups, which is emotions, which is emotional partnership. So but it's also at the beginning stage versus the lovers, which is more a completed stage. So since it's a
Right.
2, it would be at the
Right.
starting point. So I would say it would not necessarily be a relationship that's fully formed. It's in the process of being formed. And you need to invest, constantly invest in it for it to be maintained.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. So getting back to the Tro of Echoes, this chariot is unlike any chariot I've ever seen, where the person is pulling the dragons versus the Sphinx is pulling the chariot, right? So, I mean, our fate really does feel like that sometimes. We're pulling 2 different dragons trying to fly in opposite directions, and you're like, no, we're not going either one of those directions. We're coming this way.
In a way, because the chariot is like directing, you have to direct all your energies into one place. I think the decision since it's a major arcana, right? It's not like the 9 of Wands where you're carrying stuff, right? You're making a choice. Sometimes the choice is hard to make, and when you make that choice, you have more to carry and you have to direct everything that you have in your life into that particular point. And I think that is very hard to do, particular with big decisions, right? If you decide to move somewhere and you move your entire family, that's a big decision. And it's a chariot moment where you have to move everything that you've known, all your resources, your if you have a family, even if you don't have a family, your friends, it's a big decision, and you're really dragging something with you. You're forcing it to go in a direction, because normally we tend to not want to do that, anything that's really that disruptive, right? Or hard. You're like, do I really want to do this? It's gonna be so hard, I don't want to do this, and I've moved a lot of times, and I know that it's not easy, but that's just one example. You can be deciding to go to a particular school versus that it's going to be harder than one that is easier, so it's challenging yourself also to be capable and get that willpower going.
Right. Yeah, because chariot is really about willpower in a big way. So Adam just mentioned, I love your 3 of Swords card, which is a great spin on the usual broken heart image and more melancholic nostalgia rather than an usual drastic, literal, piercing heart. Well, I got to show you the one from the Tarot of Echoes, because this one made me catch my breath, like crying so much you're literally drowning in tears.
That's exactly what I when I wrote. So this one had this, when I some cards will, like, you have the image in your head, right? The ones you have to work at. This one was like, it was just there. So it was the, if you can, when you have, like, if we take it to the traditional RWS meaning of broken, sorrow, but see, here's the thing, it's a mental sorrow. It's not the heart. It's not an emotional. So it's a mental anguish. You're going through something that's so, you can cry, but it's a mental process. It's a very hard process, right? And so she's cried so much that she has created a pool of her own tears. And at the card, when I drew it, if you see, there's clouds, they're not like fog above her forehead. So that was because if you are in a cloudy mental moment, right? If you are cloudy mentally, you cannot see clearly that situation, and you are drowning more in your sorrow. So it's the moment actually where she is coming above the water. So she's pushing herself
coming out.
Yes. So it's she will be, and the swords, it's a reflection. So the reflection of the mind would be in the water. So because I see it as a mental hardship.
Mind over heart.
Yeah. Heartbreak. When you say heartbreak, yes, it could be a heartbreak in the sense. So if you were to take a relationship that is just started, like a young couple that got together for a month, and that's a heartbreak because they're emotionally invested, and it's like it's more of a passionate thing, right?
Right.
If you are with somebody for 30 years and then you lose that person, you're not just losing, it's not a passionate loss, right? After 30 years, it would be a mental heartbreak. Like you lose a part of yourself in that ish process. So I don't see it. The 3 for me is also, it's a very hard moment. So it can be any type of loss. But also you learn from it because it is, we're progressing through the swords, and she is lifting herself up. So it really is how you see that card. Like, do you choose to see it as she's drowning, or is she coming up? I kind of want to leave it up to the reader.
I think it depends on what cards are around it too, right? So, and then I assume Adam has the deck because he's talking about the 10 of Swords, which is new spin on the usual image. It's a very impacting card that pulls you in literally at the edge of that cliff, right?
Yeah, that so the 10 of Swords, we never want to get that card, but anybody, whenever you get that, it's just, nobody wants it. You kind of want to put it back in the deck, right?
Right. Can we just pull a different card?
Yeah, let me just add another one to it. But if you see the top, there's footprints. So whoever did that to her has left now. So she is in this moment. This is the point where, again, like the 3 is how you read it. Is she going to fall, or is she going to
pull herself
kind of
up,
put her right arm up and pull herself up? So, and the swords have fallen. So whatever pierced her initially, because she was pierced. So the initial pain or stabbing, I guess the back is how you want to, the initial shock,
right,
has passed. And now she has to, decide. And again, I think with swords, it's all about decisions. So, and how you approach a situation, how you choose to react to it, how you choose to move forward from it. It's not passion. It's not instinctual. It's not wands. It's not cups. It's not material. You're not going to throw money at it. It's how you decide to move forward from it.
Well, and I see it too as like, are you going to let go and follow those thoughts that hurt you in the first place? Or are you going to let them fall away from you and pull yourself up to start a new path? So,
yeah, I just finished writing the Suit of Swords, so
it's right there.
Right.
Yeah. Warrior Girl says, for me, the 10 of Swords means conquering our ego shadow. That is sensational, Al. You're so welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad people connect with that. I mean, it can be a little uncomfortable when you get it, right? But
Oh, hi, Calla Lizzie. Lizzie just came in. She's like, oh wow, Ana Tourian, loves the Tarot Arthurian. Just want the book in English.
I know a lot of people. So I did a poll because I'm going to, we're approaching publishers, and it's easier to,
show them.
If I go and I say, I think it will do really well if it was translated in English, that's my word, there's like, well, you think, do you have any proof? So I'm like, here, look at the poll.
Yeah, I got a poll that I did.
I got a poll. So I'm hoping that it'll make it easier in that sense.
Oh, jumping back to that 3 of Swords. When I was a teen, 20s, I used to have a good cry in the bathtub. It was just really getting my cry on, such a release, right? And washing it away too, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay. I love this Wheel of Fortune. This is an amazing Wheel of Fortune. I think it's probably one of my favorite Wheel of Fortunes I've ever seen, truthfully.
So it has it's actually, those are runes around.
Right. The runes.
And each rune, is there because those runes will help you in the actual
cycles, right.
cycle. So the wheel is, you never know if things are going to go good or bad, right, when it comes up. But the runes on the wheel those are the ones that you need in order to use. Like, they're there for your use. And I do go into the runes a little bit in the book, and I explain them. And then the person is actually the same person. It's not somebody else.
Reflection.
So they're looking. It's a reflection where,
I got
he's
that
looking at the past, right? Because the future is really based on the past, and it's a cycle. Sometimes it can repeat. So if you're going to go through a good period, you will always use that as in the future to, it'll help you. And also, if you went through a bad period, now you know what to do. So there's a balance in terms of the wheel, because even if you're being dealt something that is unfair or not good at the moment, you don't know if it won't actually help you, 10 to 15 years from now, because you had that experience. So even though presently you might not feel that way, or if you have a great experience now, and then, in the future, it might go not so good for you, that experience will help you to have hope and to, move through it easier. So,
well, I can also see it too as like, are you so focused on the past that you just keep repeating these cycles that you've already lived through? Or are you willing to turn your back on the past and see that path ahead of you and start a new cycle? So
yeah, so you can definitely see it like that too.
Oh, aloha, Deanne. Welcome. So yes, Kelly, this is the Trove Echoes. We're talking about pretty much all of Anna's decks. And it is no longer available. The indie is out of print because you only did 750, and US Games picked it up though. So end of next year, it'll be a mass market version with a book. So
that is correct. Yes.
Yeah. And she says, Deanne, it's Ana Tourian. OMG. Yes, Gerald. Thank you for reminding us. Purchase responsibly. Know your limits.
Yeah, I mean, you can't expect, like I said, people who are just starting to be aware of all the counterfeit out there. It really, I think it's the responsibility. Honestly, it should be the response. Sometimes you have wholesalers who will purchase from those sites because it's cheaper, right? And then that actually creates a perpetual cycle.
Right. Let's see. Is there any particular cards that were your favorite from this deck? We've been going for almost an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? Be mindful of your time.
So I do. There's a bunch. I tend to have favorites too, right?
Right.
I do like the. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to do a mental walkthrough of them. I like the Fool.
Like little flip through, right?
The Fool was fun to create. Yeah, I do like the Temperance. Temperance. And then the Queen of Pentacles.
I love that Queen of Pentacles. This is an amazing Queen of Pentacles. Yeah.
The Ace of Cups. Yeah, the Ace of Cups was fun. So I think obviously the.
Oh yeah, and you know what? This Ace of Cups makes me think of the Oracle of Echoes.
It has some fluidity in it. It is very fluid, right? And I try to do that with cups in general sometimes, like depending on the energy, right? So obviously the Ace is more expansive, If you're mourning, it's not going to be as fluid. It's more static, right? But
I love the death card.
The death. So she's blending. Because death, I see death as nothing gets lost. Everything gets
recycled.
Recycled. Right. So she's going into the environment, back into the environment. She's feeding the trees and everything. So it's that type of death.
Beth says, yes, Jonathan, that wheel really could represent some Skara showing up again and again. Mm-hmm. And then Adam has another question for you, Anna. Which card took you the longest to create and which took you the quickest?
So the quickest. Well, they all take about this honest. Well, see, the executionally, you mean, or mentally? I mean, creating it because executionally,
you do like a process of thinking about it before you ever get.
Yeah. So I don't start drawing without knowing what I'm going to draw. It progresses. I can start changing things, but I always start off with an idea. I don't go to a blank canvas and kind of let it. I do that with Oracle, not with tarot.
Not with tarot.
So the easiest card usually is the Fool, meant to come up with a concept for it because it's such a freeing thing. And if you can tap into childlike mentality, it's very easy to create. I think it depends on the personality. Like if you're a very structured, orderly person, it might be a little harder for you because the Fool doesn't have that much order.
He says creatively speaking, not.
So yeah, the Fool would be the easiest. And then in terms of the hardest, I would probably say one of the cards in the Pentacle suit, like the Page of Pentacles, would be harder for me because he's in between. He's not a knight. Yeah, he's like learning. So, it would coming up with an idea that's in between the fully known or full ability to master and not is harder to illustrate. So I think that one would be usually it's been the Page that I've taken longer to think of. Executionally wise, I usually tend to have the same time frame for them, but it also depends on what's going on at home, right? If somebody gets sick, it's gonna take me longer,
right.
I can't constantly draw it, but it usually takes me about I sketch it, then I draw it, then I ink it. If we're talking about this process, and then I go to watercolor. So it'll take about a couple of days. I would say 2 days for a card.
Right. Yeah. So Gerald brings up it's the artist-writer's thought process that I enjoy reading about in a guidebook. It invites me in and connects me deeply with the deck. So in the guidebook you wrote for the mass market, did you go into that at all? Like your thought process behind it?
So I will go in and explain the what the card means. Like there's a paragraph on what the visual means, like why this is happening. I'll sometimes explain. So it really depends. Like they're all explained, kind of why the visual is.
Right.
And then I'll go into more like what it means if it comes up into your reading tradition, like what the actual card means. So they all have like about a paragraph per card, or two paragraphs. Like the first paragraph would be like explanation, artistic explanation, and then a little bit of a meaning. It's gonna have some spread, like a spread at the end, particularly for the deck. And I do something, I do go into a little bit of how you can apply the tarot differently, path working and I like to call it dream walking. So I do have that in terms of how you can go into and a little deeper into the cards and I guess connect with them more. So yeah, which is.
He asks, do you go through a lot of versions or generally build on the idea you started with by adding to it?
So the idea tends to stay the same. What has happened in the past was artistically I've had to change it. So for instance, the Fool, initially the Fool, I had a more fluid profile of a person looking at, and the idea of how I saw him looking out is still the same. It's just the execution is different. The Magician I had, also it was different where he was mastering the elements the same way, but it was executionally different. It was less detailed. So I wanted to change that. So the if I were to say the idea stayed the same. Yeah. But
just
it's
the
just
details
how you crop it and what you show of it. Yeah. When I work for myself. When I work for other people, if I'm illustrating something for somebody else, then it will change because then it's depending on their vision of it. So if I illustrate something and they don't particularly like it or think that it works, then I'll go back and come up with a different concept.
Right. Makes sense. And Gerald likes that idea of dream walking.
Yeah, so
you hear it's path walking or something like that. So
it's path walking, like it's like path work where it's a meditation where you're stepping into the card. So you look at the card, you get all the information that you want, you kind of memorize it, and then you go into a meditation and you try to walk into the card. Like if you envision a window and you're looking out into the card and you're stepping into the card, and then you should it's like a visual guided meditation where you go in and you not guided, but like you're guiding yourself through it, where you interact with the characters in the tarot card. So you would have a discussion with the Hierophant, and he would, in this case, like he would look up from his book and his candle and he would speak to you. And then that's kind of like a different, like you would receive a personal message from the Hierophant. Like how would you discuss with this separate from a reading? Like if you were to interact with these characters, or if you go into the Chariot card, right, you see this wind kind of coming through and this person is carrying, and they would stop with the dragons, they'd be flying around, and what would they say to you? So you're going into a mental meditation, like a process to do that. And then for dream walking, I would say it's similar, but you think and you contemplate on the card before you go to bed. And you do you visualize it when you're in that in-between state where you're not asleep, but you're half asleep, right?
Right.
So you would, and that would kind of guide your it would guide your dreams. And then when you would wake up, you should write it down and see what message you would get from it.
I love that.
So there's multiple ways that you can go through it, There's also the Kabbalistic way of approaching tarot, but I've studied a little bit, but I'm not, I don't incorporate that, but I am aware of it.
So Adam asks, Anna, did you think about adding any extra cards to any of your decks? And if so, what would that card be?
So I have added extra cards for the Tarot of the Abyss. There was the Three of Swords alternative and then the Ten of Swords alternative. Right. And because those are usually those are the ones a lot of people have issues with because they bring up like negative emotions, right? Or they're associated with negative emotions. I think that there are multiple cards that you could have to incorporate in a tarot deck. The question comes when you start adding a lot more cards, price usually goes up for printing because you're adding.
Makes sense.
And then if you're going to add very many cards, in a way, you're in the border of creating a new system.
Right.
Because what I found is a lot of people, even with the Tarot of the Abyss, they don't take out the cards just to use them. The ones they leave them in the deck.
Right. I do that. I leave both of them in.
So when you leave them in the deck, you're adding an underlayer that is not traditional, right?
Right.
So
right.
I think there's like you can explore that a little more. But if I were to go and create another deck tarot, which I will, but not right now. I'm probably going to do an oracle because I need a break from tarot. I would probably add alternatives to like the Lovers, the Three again, the Ten of Swords, and yeah, those are the ones I would maybe the Hierophant, not really, but those. And I would create for the Lovers, I would probably, and this again, it would create a new system, because the way I want to do it, I would not do it in terms of male, female, or female. It wouldn't be sexual in terms of preference.
Right.
It would be more of a romantic, platonic love card.
Right. I like that.
So it would be like I would create an alternative to the Lovers where it would be a platonic version. We're more like a friendship. So then I would be adding something different that is not necessarily in the traditional tarot, and then I would probably have to really think about that. So,
well, kind of continuing along that line of thought, Kalozi is wondering, is working to match someone else's vision more difficult for you, or just more time consuming? You find it a completely
sorry,
different...
my phone is ringing, so just ignore the phone. But hold on, let me turn it off.
Oh yeah, you need to be done in about 3 minutes, right?
Yeah, I have to go pick up my kids. But so I think that for me it's easier when I work with somebody, because I mean it's more work in the sense like you have to draw sometimes alternative versions if a particular thing didn't work out, but it's easier because they tell you what they want, so you don't really have to think too much, because they have a vision. And if they come to, it also depends if they come to you with a very direct vision. Most people do. They have an idea of what they want in their tarot. That's why they go and they hire an illustrator sometimes. I think that it would be like how you go about it. But for me, my experience has been that it's been easier with Claire and with Avalon. I had information coming to me, so I just had to add a little bit to it. With the Bone Stone, it was more of a brainstorming. So it was easier in the sense, because brainstorming is easy. Like I'll shoot an idea and you will come up with the idea. So it's like a back and forth, right? Claire had a vision already, so she knew how each card, what should be in each card. So in that sense, it's easier because I don't have to go in and suggest. I can suggest angles. Like I can say, this will not look good from this angle. I think you should view it from the side, or let's zoom in or zoom out. So I can do that, but I wouldn't have to come up with a concept.
Makes sense. And then last question, because Anna does need to leave. Gerald asks me, did you already share which of Anna's decks are your top 5/20? Well, I will say this. The Oracle of Echoes is probably my number one oracle that I use.
Yay.
Yeah.
But I haven't done 20 yet, so give me a chance.
Right. No, I mean, he means in like...
I know. I'm like, I'll squeeze more in there.
Top 5 is always hard because it's always shifting and changing. But top 20, I mean, Tarot of the Abyss is definitely one of my top black and white decks. I really am loving this Tarot of Echoes. Maybe because I'm a little biased. But I don't know. I just really love the perspective that you added to a lot of these cards. I think Adam was mentioning earlier, like the Eight of Wands. I mean, an arrow going through an hourglass is just like, talk about like your time disappearing so fast, right?
Yeah, and that's a card to illustrate because it's depicting time that's moving fast.
Right.
And there's so many. You see a lot of batons flying through the air, or so it always has to show an action happening.
Right. So, and I just, yeah, and I mean, even just the tower being a tree, and then there's like a little lantern with a little family of birds in it. Just those little shifts of perspective.
Yeah,
just really, I don't know. I really love this deck. I'm a big fan of Ana, so
thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I mean, I really I'm happy when people connect with the decks. I think that not everybody will, and that's a I don't want to say that's not my goal, because I appreciate each and every one that does connect, but I can't,
right.
That would mean that you would never need anybody else to create another deck if it's so perfect, and that's not going to happen. So.
Well, I just want to thank you again, Ana. This has been lovely. I always love chatting with you. It's always an amazing time. So
thank you for
being here. Yeah, and thank you, the best chatters, for bringing it with your questions and everything.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
it's been nice hanging with you guys.
Come back anytime, Ana. I always appreciate chatting with you. So, because Ana has got to go, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Aloha and hui hou. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.